Hey everybody, so I'm back in a swamp hinge cut area. I did a video on this one last year, doing some cleanup work on it today, kind of some fine tuning, cleaning out deer beds. I did drop a few new trees, but just kind of cleaning up trails and making sure that the deer can move around easily, but also that they feel good and secure in here. So here's a little follow-up video today. I'll start walking through it. Hopefully you can hear me. The wind has picked up pretty good here in the last hour or two. So again, this is kind of a, well, this is a swamp. I mean, the ground is moist, but there's all kinds of small little rises in here. The trees that I hinge cut are predominantly ash and elm. And what I did was hinge cut them a little bit higher so I can make a bunch of little canopied beds, because there's plenty of cover in the form of kind of shrubs and things like that. So I'd hinge the trees like this, and this was a good thick hinge, but this one doesn't look like it made it. You'll see there's a bunch that made it, but I have a sweet bed kind of tucked way back up in there that I'll show. And that one did have a deer bed on it. I added a log to it today. So there's the bed back in there. So I put that log there, but there was a deer bed right there, and this was a bed I made last year. So the deer definitely were in this one. I will say this is the time of year that the deer are going to use this type of bedding the least, because it is buggy. There is a good deal of sunlight in here. They'll come through here. I mean, they're obviously in here. Now look at this hinged elm and the browse component on it. I mean, it's getting peppered. And what's cool is, or not elm, sorry, ash, hinged ash. What's cool is they sprout all the way up the trunk, and the deer are hammering this all the way up. So yeah, they're in here, they're passing through here, they're bedding in here a little bit. I found a handful of beds, but this will definitely be peak bedding during that time of year, like the rut and after the rut. Once this freezes up, they're going to be in here really heavy, but before that they'll be in here heavy because around here there's not really thick cover. They're going to want this nice thick cover, and I hinged, like I said, some high, but I did do plenty lower too. You can see these trees. I mean, they're all just getting peppered by browse. And this is an area too, you know, we talk about removing the canopy, but you're not going to get the woody response when you remove the canopy in an area like this. You're just going to get more grass. So I do want to keep, you know, the browse at their level. The treetops obviously are at their level, but this is good food. So I picked my handful of trees that I hinge high to make those nice little canopied bedrooms, because that is where they prefer to bed. That's where we find the beds over and over again. They'll bed by the treetops too, and where there's that good low ground cover component to it. But boy, they like those little canopied bedrooms, and they're in them all year round. Here's another great bed right here. So this one didn't have much of a canopy. That's more of a side cover component. But look at the browse factor on all this stuff. And they're hammering these ash sprouts. So I found some beds back in here. I am guessing this is a bachelor group. They're all very, very big beds. I would guess 3x5-ish type beds. Here's one of them, well-used bed. And then there were a few more tucked back in. I gotta see if I can remember correctly. Oh, I think over this direction. Oh yeah, here's another very well-used bed. One there, look at this big bed. Right here. And then up in this kind of little shady area. Oh yeah, right there. Nice big bed right there. So this seems like bachelor group to me. So what I did here, I have a a sneak trail cutting all the way back through there. I'm not going to go down it. This is a pretty big area. I would guess this Hinge-Cut area is 1.5, 2 acres spread out, so it'll take me a long time to show everything I've done. And I got trails cutting through all this, sneaking through everything. But I put a little sneak trail on the back there for bucks, because you think northwest wind's coming this way. So if they're scent checking this area, they're going to want to be there. But I have the trail looping all the way around this Hinge-Cut. I mean, there is a kind of a perimeter trail going all the way around it. So for any wind, those bucks can use it. And then I've got a main travel corridor kicking out towards a ladder stand that they have here. Here's a nice bedded area, or bed area under the canopy. But I like to do that. I like to get that trail going all the way around the perimeter. You can see even back in here, they're just, sunlight's kind of, shadows are tough, but they're browsing all this. And I sprayed down the trail just to keep it clear, and you spray down the trails, the deer tend to use them, so that was kind of my final step today. For sure, the travel corridor. Sprayed that down. I only have glyphosate right now. Can use ground clear, that works. I've said in other videos, it'll leave it clear for a year or two. By next year, the gly will start to wear off and the plants will pop up, but hopefully the deer will have them trails pounded down good by then. All right, so let's cut over to where I did a little bit of new bedding today. Show some other beds too. So you can do this in a swamp, but it needs to be a dry swamp. If this was wet, there were no little rises where I could make these little beds, they wouldn't use it, because where I can feel my feet sinking in, there's not deer beds. They're not going to bed where it's wet and sloppy. Look at that. I mean, they're just browsing all this stuff. So you got to find, like, this is a high point right here. That's why I hinged that tree right there. Got another bed tucked back up in here. This one was a used bed. Back in here, it doesn't quite look like it's been used in a while, but you could tell it was worn down. But look at that, plenty of cover at the deer's level. Lots of food. I mean, all these ash are just getting peppered. I made this bed right here, a little bed right there. I did spray down the beds too, because I want to keep the ground nice and clear for them. Try to encourage them to use it. And I don't go too crazy with it. I want lots of browse within their bedding. I just spray down basically a 3x5 spot for the deer. It's kind of that fine tuning stuff. You don't have to do it, but you can. Here was like a fawn bed back in here. So here I cut some new stuff today. There are a few spots where I think there was a deer bed back in here. Here's some new trees I cut. I focused mostly on cleanup today, but I had time, so I added to this. There was a bed right here. I love that, finding these isolated conifers. It just screams buck bedding to me when you find these isolated conifers and you get a spot like right there, especially in the winter, you know, when they got this conifer protecting them from the snow and all that. It just feels like a spot a buck would want to bed. And this is kind of on the perimeter too of the bedding, so definitely seems like a spot a buck would be hanging back and checking things out. So here's one I made today. I threw a log on it because I had one close by, sprayed it down, but got a nice canopy over top. Get that out of the way. Nice little canopy over top, and good little escape hatch out this way. Can sneak in from right here. Nice spot to hang out, check things out. Also did some cutting up this way. I didn't blow it wide open on these cuts. I kind of just focused on making individual beds. I mean, there's plenty of sun, so I know these cuts will live, or most of them should live. Here's a bed I made. But I wanted really just to kind of focus on doing some little isolated bedding nooks back in here. Potentially maybe more buck bedding. I don't know if a buck will use it, but in theory, a buck could hang back and be sent checking on this bedding area. Let's see. Oh, I got a couple up here. So here is a nice one. No log close by, so I didn't put a log in there. But it's just, it helps sometimes. Here's a good bed. You can see that you can cut out on the back here, but nice canopy, nice cover, good spot to hang out. So, all right, I'm getting pretty well to the end. I cut a few more out this direction. Ended up popping up a little high on me, but got a nice little bed back right there. Canopy, put a bed right there, and then there's the aspen transition right there. So this is kind of that transitional line between the wet part of the swamp and the kind of that aspen ridge. And I got the travel corridor working that whole edge going out that way right to a ladder stand. So there's a plan in place. Hopefully, a buck gets on it, scent check in this area, and pops out during the rut right in front of a hunter. And that's what they do. If you've ever watched a Hinge-Cut area and you watch a buck in it during that breeding time of year, they work the perimeters. They don't tend to cut in unless, they're chasing a doe or something through it. And then they will for sure, but they like the perimeter. So, all right. That's what was going on today. You all take care and God bless.